I need to set a.
My friend from Mexico is a big blackjack player.
Oh,
I still have more patience.
3-card poker's where you win money.
It says for life.
It says we're live, but no,
It's like
you were gonna eat it.
like
You're-
I used to
Because you
be
usually have a,
Yep.
It says for life. Yeah. I shared it, so we'll see if it's live.
It all stacked together.
It says live in 60 seconds.
Yeah, we went up Saturday. We're going on it so crowded till the Aaron Lewis concert.
Oh, Lord. I've seen Eric a couple times.
When that sold out, too.
Till 5:30.
He was with Stain.
Maybe it might be.
He really mellowed down.
Mhm.
His words don't show that.
What's this?
This is a schedule.
Yeah, I'm trying to separate it all out. I just started printing.
You know,
Is that
this
what you
right
normally
here,
do?
that's
Just hit live?
Yeah, we usually have this.
Do what?
Sure, we don't.
I know.
it was specific.
Not, let me look.
Every community.
Let me pull up YouTube and see.
It says optomap imaging
Let
choices.
me government.
He's the,
Oh, it's a new light thing.
Yep, we're live.
It's
Okay,
time
we're live.
sheet.
oh,
I don't know why we don't have
well,
that.
there we go.
I don't know.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Tonight, we have quite a few to get through. We've got everyone allocated 15 minutes to tell us what your ideas are, your needs, and we'll try to stick to it so we're not here till dark 30. The first group up is the Widow's Girl Food Pantry.
Widow's Barrow is part of them.
Okay, so it's not two separate ones. It's just one. Okay.
Well, yeah, actually.
Well, they have a slot too. So we just had two slots for. See how we had it.
No, Mark, I'm not sure why Mark.
That's well, there you
Okay. It's okay. We'll have a little
We
extra.
wouldn't go through these.
So you got 30 minutes.
So you are Perry County Food Pantry Coalition.
Yes, and then the Cannelton Food Pantry has a
Is that
separate.
correct? Yep. Or not us.
I am presenting for the coalition.
Okay.
And if you wouldn't mind, state your name and who you represent.
I'm Erin Meyer. I'm a community wellness coordinator for Purdue Extension. I work in Perry, Spencer, Crawford, and Pike County. One of my main roles is to help alleviate food insecurity. So one of the things that I do here
Need to get you up here.
on the mic.
Sorry.
That way you're on
This is
the
good.
mic and you also then.
Okay. So one of the things that I do here is help facilitate the Perry County Food Pantry Coalition. So to give you just a reminder of who that is, it's the Widow's Barrel Food Pantry, Cannelton Food Pantry, Seventh-day Adventist Food Pantry, Martin's Club Food Pantry, Council of Agencies, and then our advisory members are Purdue, and this is all in your notes.
Okay.
If you're trying to, right, it's all
Yes,
in
okay, yeah.
who.
Thank you.
section.
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you.
So the advisory members are Catholic Charities of Tell City, Purdue Extension, the Perry County United Way, Perry County Community Foundation, and Lincoln Hills Development Corporation. So we meet monthly solely to work on food insecurity issues in the county. So next slide. So what do? We serve economically disadvantaged families through food resources. To access food pantries, families do need to have proof of income eligibility. Okay, so we don't necessarily serve everyone, but we do try to help as many people that qualify for the services as possible. We serve any age, gender, race, and ethnicity, as long as they meet those income service guidelines. In 2023, we served over 22,000 household members. Okay, so I know Perry County doesn't have a population that's more than 22,000, so some of those are repeat visitors. But we had 22,000 people, like separate service encounters, food that's given to them we count those as household members. So if somebody comes in with a family of 4, we're gonna give them enough food for a family of 4.
Now, would they count as 4?
Household members, yeah.
Good.
So it's a little confusing sometimes when you see some of these numbers, but just to know that 22,000,
Individual.
yes. Okay. And so we've distributed over 300,000 pounds of food, okay? To put a money value to that, because I think sometimes it's really hard to quantify. Our services are donation-driven, volunteer-driven. The pantries do have to pay for a large majority of the food that they are distributing, so I'll get into that in just a minute. But it's about $576,000 worth of food. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what we're doing here. So we do emergency food distribution at each of the pantry locations. We also partner with the Tell City Kiwanis to help distribute their food basket distribution. I think if you called Rebecca Fenn and asked, for a testimonial, she'll say that working with our coalition has been beneficial to them because they're able to serve more people, but the distribution is also smoother because we actually help with, get the baskets to the clients that are in need of that. We partner with Tri-State Food Bank to host mobile food distributions. Those we also have to pay for. So we write grants and use some of our donation money to bring in Tri-State Food Bank's mobile pantry. And we go out to places a little farther out than Tell City or Cannelton, Troy, Rome, Perry Central, try to hit some of the areas in the community that a pantry isn't necessarily located. And we're working on more of those for 2024. We have some funding secured, so we'll do that again. Other responsibilities, just procurement of food resources, food and monetary donations. We do a lot of grant writing and fundraising. We connect clients to other community resources. So part of the reason that United Way is involved and Lincoln Hills is involved and Catholic Charities was involved is because when someone visits the food pantry and they need other resources, we already know who to call. We're trying to make that more of a collaboration in terms of getting a person services quickly when they need it. And then we just talk monthly on, troubleshooting, how we're going to continue to meet the need. And I think the next page is probably, we're not there yet, but each agency has a set schedule. We do operate year round. Some pantries are open a couple days a week. Some are more a couple days a month, just depending on the way that pantry has been designed and the volunteer race and that sort of thing. We are open year round. We were operational during COVID-19. I think that's one thing that I always point out, like the last 3 years have been an absolute, it's been an interesting situation. But during the pandemic, if you saw any of the Farmers to Families food box distributions, we popped up at St. Paul's Catholic Church and there were giant trucks of dairy and fruits and vegetables. The coalition is responsible for bringing that here and, connecting with the sheriff's department, connecting with the volunteers, trying to make sure that the food got distributed and in a safe way, in a way that people could access it. We do serve any resident of Perry County who is in need of food resources. So just to emphasize that. Our why, Perry County has a 16.6% poverty rate right now. So putting that in terms of people, 3,188 people qualify as being at the federal poverty level. We do have a significant number of families that are on the bubble, meaning they have jobs, they're not making livable wages, which means they don't have the funds to pay for transportation and food and medicine and childcare. And so usually food is where they give it up. They come to us for help, or they eat less, or parents skip meals so their kids can eat. So the food insecurity piece of it is a really big deal. Not all of our families in poverty are food insecure, and not all of our food insecure families are in poverty, but they do cross the lines quite a bit. We have a 10.2% food insecurity rate, so that's about a little under 2,000 people. When you think about food insecurity, most families aren't always food insecure. Okay, so sometimes they have really good months, less medical bills, less transportation bills, the kids weren't sick. You know, we've got money for food. The next month, everything goes crazy. We don't have money for food. So you kind of see for some of the families where it's a little bit of this roller coaster. You do have some families that are low enough income and monetary wise that they're utilizing those services regularly. We do connect them with the FSSA office to try to get things like SNAP and our WIC and farmers market vouchers when those are available. And so like there are other resources, National School Breakfast and School Lunch, backpack programs. There are other resources in the county that we continue to work with so that they're not just using the pantries, but it's been a dilemma that started for a lot of families with COVID-19. You know, a lot of families that, you know, they'd have a job and then they'd wait tables and they do other things, and then some of those jobs kind of went away and they didn't know to come back. And so now we have families that are just continuously struggling. Our pantries are kind of struggling too, because you know, in our pantry network we have over 100 volunteers, but they are a majority of them are rapidly aging. So when I say that rapidly aging, we have a large percentage of volunteers that are over 80 and 90 years old. So when we talk about lifting food boxes, loading food into cars for people, or unloading trucks, we're in a little bit of a dilemma. Okay, so we need to do some volunteer recruitment and retention activities. We need to try to engage younger families to come volunteer with us. But right now, we're just trying to get the food to the people, procure the food in a way that makes sense. We are, like I said, donation. So that's food donations and monetary donation driven. We are volunteer driven. So we have no paid staff. We have no regular income. All our income comes from donations, monetary donations, food donations, grant writing. Okay, so I'm an advisory member. Okay, so when I come to talk to you, like the request doesn't go to Purdue Extension. Okay, part of what I'm here to do is help them organize in a way that they can be as efficient as possible. We have a couple grant writers in the coalition, so I help them put the final touches on grants and that kind of thing. We usually apply between 2 and 5 grants. Food is really easy for us to get money for because the Community Foundation and the United Way support food. They do not support operating costs and or capital improvements. So we have to look outside the county, other types of grants or donations for that type of money. Our biggest area is at our biggest barrier is that the usage of our pantries is still very high post-COVID. And a lot of that has just come down to, again, like people that were doing okay before COVID-19 with, you know, mom had a job and a weekend gig, dad had a job and a weekend thing. Those second jobs went away for good for a lot of people. And so, you know, it's been really hard for families to recover. There's not anyone in this room that doesn't realize that the expense of groceries is sky high compared to where we were at pre-COVID. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. We've had a disruption in food supply chains in terms of our regional food bank. So we work with Tri-State Food Bank out of Evansville. Prior to COVID, they were sourcing food from all over the United States. Logistically, things were coming in. We had all kinds of things to pick from at a very low. We still have to pay for food from the food bank. Okay, I think that I always try to dispel the myth that everything that comes from the food bank is free. There is some commodity foods that we aren't charged for, but a lot of what we distribute, we have to pay for from the food bank. We pay for it at a lower cost than the grocery store. What we're finding now is when our pantries go into the database for Tri-State Food Bank, where there used to be hundreds of items to pick from, there might be 15. And of those 15, are they really usable? You know, is a 10-pound bag of dried beans usable for families that have limited cooking equipment? Some may not have a stove. We may be working with a microwave. Like there's all these things that we have to like keep in mind. And so our pantry directors are really good at knowing what people use, what they're not gonna use. And so we've just gotten to a point where there's not a lot that we can pull from Tri-State. And that leads us to going to places like Walmart, going to places like Ruler, Aldi's. Some of our pantries do work with Winkler Foods wholesale to try to get lower prices on foods. But the pantries are purchasing a lot of food because they haven't been willing to give less food. Okay, so it's like you have a certain standard of what you want to be able to give families when they come to your pantry. We are getting very close to the point where we're going to have to start giving less food, period, because they can't continue to operate everything that we had saved up. The funds are held through Catholic Charities, and so we kind of, as we get donations, we kind of hold just a little bit back so that if there's a catastrophic event, we can still serve the community, right? We're getting to a point where we're just not making ends meet. So that's part of why we're here, right? It's getting to a point where we're probably going to have to back off on how much food we give individual families because there's just not in order to stay sustainable, to stay active, to protect the integrity of the pantry system. We're going to have to just pump the brakes, I think. And what happens is then the families who we try to serve are the ones that really get in trouble there. To give you an idea of how much money we have to bring in every year for food alone for the 5 pantries and how much we're trying to get from grants, it's about $100,000 a year. Okay, so that's us buying from Tri-State Food Bank, buying from Walmart. Like I said, we do get some food donations, so that helps buffer, some of that. But we are spending just under $100,000 a year between the 5 pantries just to make ends meet. So it's a lot of grant writing, and that's not guaranteed, right? So nothing's ever guaranteed. We know that. Let's see. Went off script here, so. Oh, just to let you know, so we have about $30,000 secured for this year, which is right on track. We applied for United Way and for Community Foundation, and our ask is always much bigger than what we get. We're used to that, but that leaves us about $70,000 in the hole for this year alone. And so, we'll be, it's always a continuous, let me stop, okay. The last page, to give me 30 more seconds. Okay, so we're here because we're trying to safeguard the emergency food distribution, okay? The last 3 years have been horrible. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. If you look at the very last page, the operating budget for the 5 food pantries, so that's things we have to pay for pest control, for insurance. We have liability insurance, and each of these places, I think a lot of people think, oh, the churches, that they support that. These are individual nonprofits, okay? So they are trying to generate funds to pay for all of these things. So our overall operating budget was $176,000. Is going to be $176,000 for this coming year. Part of that is we have 5 pantry directors that work over 40 hours a week. Okay, they don't get paid for a single hour of any of that. So we're trying to find funds to help stipend some of their time because, like I said, they are volunteers. They're not picking up other jobs. They're doing this because they have a servant's heart, but it is a lot of work. And when we look at just trying to make that more manageable for them. In addition, we have one grant writer, not myself, we have one grant writer in the group who writes a ton of grants. And I mean, like, the expense of a grant writer to a nonprofit is expensive, right? She does it all for free. So looking at trying to stipend her, but we're also including money in our budget this year for volunteer recruitment and appreciation. Because if we don't do a little bit better job with being able to appreciate our volunteers, and I think that they're there because they want to be, but it's like making a conscious effort to say, like, we appreciate what you're doing. And then taking into effect that we have to have younger volunteers because our volunteer base is aging rapidly. We are gonna include money in our budget this year. So the pantries asked me to ask for $500,000. Okay, so that's a lot of money, but that covers less than 3 years of our services. It's actually 2.83 years if you get down to it. And so, that's where we're at. Like we are at a point where our grant writing cannot keep up with the need. Our donation base has gone down because everybody's in the same boat. Everything's more expensive. Gas is more expensive. So we're not getting as many food donations. It's not because we don't work at it, because we do. But I want you to think about that and just think about what you've heard. And if you have questions, so myself and Sister Shelley from Catholic Charities help facilitate the group. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I will leave you with my phone number. It's not on that page, but I'll just give it to you, 812.
Or your email or whatever works best.
I'll give you both, 812-630-3006. And then my email is Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R, 258 at Purdue, P-U-R-D-U-E, .edu. So if you have any follow-up questions,
I've got a quick one.
Yeah.
What group would actually be the recipient of the funds?
so all of our funds go to Catholic Charities because the coalition, so our pantries, some of them have their nonprofit status, some of them don't, okay?
And Catholic Charities is
Is a nonprofit, they are the fiscal agent, so anytime we get a grant or a donation, it always goes to them in the line item of the Perry County Food Pantry Coalition.
And then how is that divided?
It's divided, well, so something like this would be divided equally. Okay, so so sometimes we'll get donations and it'll go to the Perry County Food Pantry Coalition, and in the check line, the donor will say, I want all of my funds to go to Cannelton. Okay, so Sister Shelley says, okay, this one goes to Cannelton. Okay, when we write for a grant for the Community Foundation and United Way, those are discretionary funds that go to food. The group knows we divvy that up based on the numbers that they serve. Okay, so we have 2 pantries that serve almost double what the other 3 do. Okay, so all the pantry directors know that. They know that they're spending a lot more money on food. We look at their numbers for the last couple months and, okay, based on what you've been serving, then you get this percentage, you get this percentage, and you get this percentage. Because some pantries don't need as much money. Okay. So, but something like this, we would more than likely divide it evenly. Okay, because we have pantries that need repairs. We have pantries that have a truck that they have the service and maintenance. We have one of our Widow's Barrow, they have all the refrigerator and freezer space that the group uses when we get large distributions of food. Sometimes we'll go down to Kentucky and they'll get a truckload of chicken. Well, it all goes to Widow's Barrow, right? So there are some of those expenses that everybody has. And so, because we're asking for more than just food money, we're asking for help with operational costs, it would be distributed to each pantry.
So the Catholic Charities is pretty huge offer, I mean, pretty huge.
Yep.
Is there a separate fund within the Catholic Charities that this would go to?
So we have a line, I don't know if I'll speak to that. We have a line item in the Catholic Charities budget that is labeled Perry County Food Pantry Coalition. So any donation, if any of you wrote a check to the Perry County Food Pantry Coalition, and you just were like, oh, who do I send this to? It's always Catholic Charities. Okay, Sister Shelley puts it in the account, and we distribute funds about every quarter, right? Because not everybody needs funds every month, and it's a process.
Yeah.
But you also want to be able to be good stewards of the money and making sure that that everybody's getting what they need to continue to operate.
Aaron, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Thanks for your
Yes.
speaking, your passion. I'm trying to look at it when you start talking about operational expenses. So the first thing that goes through my mind is you have 5 facilities in a community of less than 18,000
Yeah.
people.
So honestly,
Make that make sense to me.
well, and so honestly, one of the things that we are actually getting ready to do as a strategic plan in April and May, to look at. Okay, so sometimes it comes down to, most of our clients don't drive. They don't have vehicles, they don't have gas money, or they have one car per family and that car went with whoever's working. So they're walking to and from the pantry. Okay, so when you look at the way Cannelton's located, if we pulled Cannelton's Food Pantry out of Cannelton, we have lots of families that would be in big trouble because they have a hard time. And, a follow-up question to Patty and Mary would be, how many walkers do you have? I know that they serve a ton of walkers.
And the weather's not always great, so I get that.
Yeah, well, and more like, they don't have vehicles, right? They're put in Cannelton, right? They're stuck here. I don't want to say stuck, but like, they have a hard time navigating outside of Cannelton. When you look at Martin's Cloak, okay, so they're up by Siberia, right? That's a whole different animal.
They serve a lot of people in the northern part of the county.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, Cannelton, I agree. Tell City, I agree. Northern Perry County, I agree.
So
That leaves still two
We're
utilities, internets,
Yeah.
insurance.
So we are actually doing some strategic planning in the next 2 meetings and looking at, because if the Indiana United Way has a very large matching capital grant. Okay, so we are looking at, given all the things that I just told you, the aging volunteers, the service numbers, the multiple internet, pest control, electric, water,
Insurance.
gas, those kinds of things. Does it make more sense to combine the 3 Tell City locations into one resource center? That's it's a big elephant to eat one bite at a time.
I'm sure.
So it's one of those things. So that when you think about this, that we are talking about that like continuously, and that's something that the Community Foundation and United Way kind of asked us to think about, because there's outside funding available to help support something like that. But it's making sure that we're still meeting the needs of the community in a way that makes sense.
Okay, I have one more thing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
please don't take this don't take this wrong, but
You're good.
it bothers me when I see able-bodied people. I'm not talking about their children. Their children, none of these are the children's fault. It bothers me when I see able-bodied people not working. Worse yet, you just told me that you struggle getting volunteers, but yet you give you give food and other items to able-bodied people when you need volunteers. Am I wrong? Am I wrong to say, why would you not ask them people to help you?
So we have to be really careful not
I get that.
to make generalizations.
There's a fine line there.
So when you actually look at the percentage of people that we serve who are working, it's very high. A livable wage in Southern Indiana is $18 an hour. Okay, so that's what the Indiana Workforce Development has deemed as what someone needs to make per hour to be able to pay for housing, medical, transportation, childcare, and food. Okay, so when you look at like how many jobs are actually $18 an hour or more, do we have them? Yes. Do the families that we are serving have the skills to get those jobs? Maybe. But our gas station attendants are not making $18 an hour, I bet. McDonald's might be, some of the fast food might be close to that, but I would question it. Okay, so, we don't know. When I look at an able-bodied person, I also don't know, because we have very high mental health rates, okay, and very few services to address those. So when I look at somebody who's physically they look able to me, I don't know what kind of mental health things that they deal with on a daily basis. And I actually work with someone in another county whose husband, when you look at him, you're like, why does he not work? Well, you know what? He's a veteran. Okay, he has post-traumatic stress syndrome and a traumatic brain injury from his service. Right? When we pass him on the street, in my head, I think he should get a job. There's no way he can get a job.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it bothers me. You struggle for help.
Well,
And you're curious, and you said it. Sometimes it's an iffy thing whether it's right to say, you're getting this, could you help us? We're helping you.
And I think we do have people who do volunteer, who do get services and then come back and
That's
volunteer. I think sometimes we're serving parents of young children, and part of the reason they're struggling is because they don't have the childcare to support that, right? Which also means they don't have the childcare sometimes to support volunteerism, right? So it's multifaceted. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to.
No, I want you to educate me.
Yeah, and all of those things are things that we look at. Now, do we have people that abuse the system? Yes. Okay, but you know what? The mission that our food pantries chose was to serve those that need it, right? So, do we try to help with soft skills, interviews, work one, Lincoln Hills, we are constantly trying to connect people to these resources. Can we make them take them? No, but I honestly and truly believe, or I wouldn't say it, okay, that the majority of people that we serve are trying to get out of the situation because, there's a stigma to using our services and it's not a fun place for them to be. We do serve a ton of elderly people too, so I think that's a whole different.
Sure.
It's-
I appreciate
It's
it.
hard to make that determination, and you can't turn people away because you don't know what you don't know.
And I think that's part of the reason we're here is because we are at a tipping point where we might have to start, probably not turning people away, but what they're used to getting is not gonna be what they continue to get.
Aaron, I just have one question. You was talking about possibly combining the 3 pantries in Tell City, and you have one in Siberia, the St. Martin's Cloak. Would it be possible that we could put, if you combine those 3, to put another one on that end of the county? Say Leopold or somewhere there, because there's people out there that's hurting too.
And I think, right, okay, and it's one of those things where sometimes food pantries, and we do have a couple church-based food pantries that don't, they're church supported, and so when we ask them to be part of the coalition, they're like, we're good, right? So like Deer Creek Baptist is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they are a church-run food pantry. We've got a couple of those that they don't necessarily operate within our coalition because they're like, Aaron, we don't need your grant money. We got church donations and the church is supporting them.
I was just wondering because, it would be nice if you would have it more spread out all over the
And I
county.
think that's probably what we need to look at.
Yeah, I don't need to revolve in one city.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Before we get past,
Can I ask one question? I'm sorry, just very quickly. My concern is, whenever you write these grants for governmental dollars, do you ever have issues because it's related to a religious organization or a church or the Catholic Charities or anything like that? Because sometimes I feel like this runs into is there a separation there? We may have to check with Baker Tilly or, we have to be very careful with funds. So I don't know do you ever have those issues when you write grants for governmental dollars?
So we don't usually go after governmental dollars because they don't usually cover our services. Okay, so most of what we're going after are foundation-based grants. We don't have issues there. Catholic Charities is a nonprofit, so and I think Catholic Charities is so much bigger than the religion.
Yeah.
That people see in the name of it. But I would expect you to do due diligence there, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a valid point, but honestly, most of the reason we don't go after it is because it doesn't usually cover food.
Okay.
Or the types of things that we need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Wonderful presentation.
the next person we got on the list is the Cannelton Food Pantry.
I'm gonna use the code here, and I brought
Okay, great.
things for everybody.
Thank you. Sure.
Right.
It's just what was emailed.
But it's pretty. It's in color.
Is it something?
Down there, we've done.
I'm Mary Garrettson, and I'm with the Cannelton Food Pantry. And I help write most of the grants for the Cannelton Food Pantry. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about today is our Phase 4 Building Improvement Initiative. So I'm going to touch a little bit on you're not you when you're hungry. tell you a little bit about the history of the Cannelton Food Pantry, and then talk a little bit about this United Way of Indiana capital grant that we're applying for, the details of our Phase 4 building project, what it's going to take for us to get a one-for-one funding match for this capital grant, and then leave you with some takeaways. So as Erin mentioned in her presentation, right now 16.6% of people in Perry County are living at the poverty level. Last year, we had an opportunity to bring a movie to the community called The Working Hungry. And this movie followed 3 families in Indiana and their struggle with, yes, they all have jobs, yes, they are working, but they're still struggling with food insecurity. And as Erin also mentioned, the livable wage in Indiana is $18 per hour. So a lot of these people may have a couple of different jobs that they're trying to work, but they still are not making that livable wage. So $18 per hour, a 40-hour-a-week job. So a lot of the jobs are, 28 hours a week. So that's not giving you that livable wage. So these families that are struggling with food insecurity, they're asking themselves questions like, am I going to pay my rent this month? Or am I going to buy gas so I can get to my job? Or am I going to put food on the table? So those are the questions that they are struggling with. Several years ago, Snickers candy bar had a series of commercials with the tagline, "You're not you when you're hungry." And it was Betty White trying to play flag football, or Danny Trejo trying to be a very angry Marsha Brady. And the purpose of these commercials was to show that when you're hungry, you're really not acting like yourself. So I know when I get hungry, I have a tendency to be a little bit hangry, and that anger may come out. So think about when you guys get hungry, do you get a headache? Do you move a little bit slower than you normally do? Are you thinking clearly? And think about if you're a child in school or a teenager in a learning environment and trying to fight through some of these feelings of hunger, but still pay attention in school. So the Cannelton Food Pantry, our mission is to provide food and personal care items to anyone in need who comes to our door, and this is regardless of their age, gender, race, or ethnicity. And so we're using our mission to help our clients that are facing these food insecurity issues. I myself have never had to struggle with food insecurity. So, I try to be empathetic with those clients that come to our door. A little bit about the Cannelton Food Pantry and our history. We actually opened in 2005 as Jasper's Food Pantry, and we were located originally in the basement of the Cannelton Methodist Church. Then in 2008, we moved to the Oaks building, and at that time, that building was owned by the Perry County Council on Aging. So we were renting space in the back of the Oaks building for the food pantry. Then in 2019, the Perry County Council on Aging decided to sell the Oaks building, so the food pantry actually looked for other locations to operate, but we were not able to find anything. So in 2020, the Clayton Harris Memorial Church decided to purchase the Oaks building with the sole purpose of keeping the food pantry in operation. So there were several things that went on in 2020. We rebranded the pantry as the Cannelton Food Pantry. We received certification to become the Emergency Food Assistance Program. So that's the TFAP program that allows us to distribute commodities to our clients. And then, of course, COVID hit. And I think Erin did a pretty good job of explaining how COVID impacted all of the pantries. And we have continued to see our client numbers grow year over year. Every year we serve an increased number of people. And most of our funding that we get is targeted toward food purchases and operating expenses. So the next couple of slides just show some of our metrics for 2023. So the Cannelton Food Pantry had 2,136 visits in 2023, and we served 4,908 individuals in those visits. And in addition to that, we have an outdoor open market, which we operate on the days that we're open. We served an additional 3,500 people in that outdoor open market. And those foodstuffs are part of a partnership with Widow's Barrel and Feed America. So we get a lot of those foodstuffs in the open market through those programs. And in 2023, Cannelton Food Pantry distributed 109,000 pounds of food. So we have managed to do a few improvements to our building since it was purchased through grants and donations. We've gotten some new commercial refrigeration units, new air conditioner, furnace, handicap ramps, a patio for this outdoor market area, new lighting, new tables and chairs, and new pantry shelving. So why am I really here today? I want to talk to you about this United Way grant, or United Way of Indiana grant opportunity. So this is a very unique opportunity to receive capital funding for larger projects. This grant is a gift from the Lilly Foundation Endowment to United Way of Indiana. It's targeted at organizations that are providing essential health and human services. So there's a couple of caveats with this United Way grant. First of all, you have to apply for a minimum of $50,000. Then each organization that applies must have a dollar-for-dollar match for the funding that they ask for. So what that means is our project has to be a minimum of a $100,000 project in order to apply for this grant. The capital funding, as I have said, is not readily available. This is a unique opportunity for us to bring money in from outside Perry County to our community, and for us to make some significant improvements to our facility. So the details of this request, we actually are asking for $60,825 from Indiana United Way. And we have our contact in Perry County, Lacey Jones from United Way of Perry County. She has approved us moving forward with this grant application. So we've actually been working with Rachel Lee from the United Way of Indiana for the last several weeks to get our application submitted. We can go ahead and submit this application without our matching funding being secured. However, the matching funding must be secured prior to the United Way of Indiana dispersing any of their dollars. So we're going to be looking for $60,825 in matching funds. So what's Cannelton Food Pantry going to do with a $121,000 project? So the next couple of slides kind of go over that. We need to replace our roof. We have some leaks in the roof that are causing several issues. We've had to replace some light fixtures because of the roof leaks. The fascia soffits also need to be repaired and replaced. We need to make our bathrooms handicap accessible to make it more usable for our clients should they need the facilities. We want to replace the 40-plus-year-old flooring that's kind of throughout the main floor. The carpeting is very stained and wrinkled, and in some areas it's becoming a safety issue. Our outdoor patio area, we'd like to put some roll-up tarps to help, in the inclement weather to keep people a little bit more comfortable. Currently, one of our volunteers in the wintertime sits out there in coveralls so she can, help everybody that needs help with the outdoor market. We also want to update our kitchen to a commercial kitchen. By doing that, we could partner with groups such as Purdue Extension and offer classes to our clients, maybe help them with food preparation, food preservation, food safety, to help them be able to better utilize some of the things that are available through the pantry. It might be an opportunity to partner with Cannelton City Schools and perhaps offer some classes for some of their students, because I don't believe right now they currently have anything like a culinary arts program. And it would also be an opportunity to have a community gathering space, especially with the commercial kitchen, the meeting area that we have, and handicap accessible bathrooms. So the next slide is a table that shows what the estimated costs are for each of these phases of the project. So you can see roof, 31,000, bathroom, 10,000, flooring, 10,000, patio enclosure, 8,000, commercial kitchen and refrigeration, 46,000. And then we've got about 16,000 for unexpected expenses, because anytime you get into a remodel, there's going to be some unexpected expenses. So our total cost estimate is $121,650. So how are we going to approach this one-for-one matching fund request? So we have already replaced part of the roof on the building and have replaced and repaired the fascia and the soffit work. So that was an $11,150 expense, and United Way is going to allow that to be included as part of our matching funding. So we've already secured that money and invested it in the building. We have about $2,800 in donations that could be targeted toward this project if we can't get the matching funds in other ways. The Tell City High School is hosting a fundraiser in the next couple of weeks. I think it's April 12th, called Empty Bowl. And Cannelton Food Pantry is going to be one of the beneficiaries of that fundraiser. So we're going to estimate maybe $1,500 from that fundraiser. We don't know. I've also written and submitted several grants to try and get matching funding. We submitted a grant to Subaru Foundation for $8,500. That was not funded, so we know we're not going to get that. We submitted a grant to the Indiana Pacers Foundation for $10,000. That was not funded, so we know we're not going to get that. We have a grant proposal into Welborn Baptist Foundation for $19,000. We will find out in May whether or not that grant is received. We have a grant with Southern Indiana Power for $2,000. We should be finding out probably sometime in April whether that was received or not. And so my ask to you for ARP funding is $50,000 to make up the rest of the match that we need for this United Way grant. And we have applied for more grants than it will take to do the matching funds, but as I've already said, we know we're not going to get all of the money that we've applied for. And so the takeaways that I want to leave you with, this is a unique opportunity to bring in outside funding into Perry County. It's an opportunity for facility updates that will help us sustain our services in the future and possibly expand our services. The United Way grant we're asking for is $60,650. The ARP funding match we're asking for is $50,000, and we've already secured about $13,950 toward the match.
One quick question.
Yes,
Who owns the property? Does the church still own it?
the church still owns the property. The food pantry leases the property from the church.
The whole building, is all of it the food pantry?
There's a part of the building that is not used for the food pantry, but the rest of the building is all food pantry.
I've been seeing where something or other, it's a transitional housing? Is
Yeah, that's a totally separate thing, and I'm not sure
But it's not in that building.
what it's looking at going into the building, but I don't know that is going to actually take place. I don't have all of the details about that right now. I know
Okay.
there's some bumps in the road to make
Okay.
that happen.
Is
So,
Cannelton Food Pantry a nonprofit?
Yes.
You have your own
We
status?
have our own
Okay.
501c3.
Okay,
Yes,
that's what I
we
wanted to
do.
know.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's actually who's asking?
Yes, the
It wouldn't
Cannelton
be
Food Pantry. is
anything to
who's
do with who you lease from or the church that you lease from?
I was wondering why the landlord isn't taking care of the structure of the building.
The landlord did take care of the roof replacement that's already been done. That was done through the church.
Okay.
So that 11,000 that has already been invested in the replacement of part of the roof, the church supplied those funds.
And when this, can you just talk about how, like how it affects people, like the nutrition, like what you were saying?
Well, I
It goes
think-
back to the mental health, it goes back to all.
Yeah,
all
I
the
think Erin covered that in her presentation with how, Well, you're not you when you're hungry,
Yeah.
so just to remind you, you're not you when you're hungry. You know, if you're hungry, there's gonna be a lot of other things that,
Is this bribe?
This is a,
This bribe, ain't it?
no.
How many's down there? 3? There you go. We got enough there. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
And your contact information's in here. If we have any
I
questions,
have
right?
I
I think I saw yours.
I know that the food pantry email address is in there.
Oh,
My email address, I can give you that.
okay. Yeah. Does that come to you?
I can get it there, but
Okay.
megarretson@gmail.com
Okay.
is my direct email address.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Brandon Long with the Tell City Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that's
I'll take your color photo though. That's fine. Thank you.
So this is probably the 75th or 76th different rendering of the sports complex since we started this project, long before I was even with the Parks Department. But this is the most recent and hopefully the final. And we went from 8 fields to 6 fields to 5 fields to 4 fields to keeping 2 original fields and flipping one around and making a different field bigger and moving parking spots and concrete and everything between the fields. And the reason we got to that point was obviously because of money. To do 8 fields, or actually to do 7 fields, was going to cost us between $10 and $12 million to start from scratch. We have about 2.6 million in the city right now, which is obviously really far off from 12 million. So we decided the best use of our funds would be to keep the top left field that you see and the bottom left field. So that would be, if you go to that sports complex right now, that would be fields 1 and fields 2. And then everything that's in color would be new, with the exception of the 2 red lines that are going from the top left down toward the bottom right piece of the paper, and that's just indicating a floodplain. So what we think we can do with the 2.6 million, build both of these fields. We know that we can do fields, and we know that we can do all light gray color, and we know that we can build the new concession stand and restroom area, as well as the parking lot. That's not a paved parking lot. It's also questionable about the lights for the top right field, because the field that's there right now is facing southwest. So that field needs to be turned around so it shares the same concession stand and press box as the rest of them. So I guess what I'm here to ask for is assistance and money to help us do more from the beginning. Our thought process right now is to do everything that we can with the amount of money that we have, and then in the future to add a 5th field off to the west of the top left field there to have the 5th field. If we ever grow that we need a 6th field, we can fit a 6th field down there also. So this renovation here, without help, would probably leave out new batting cages, and would probably leave out new dugouts on the main field if we can get away with that, and possibly leave out lighting system on the 200-foot field, and a few of those things. We're still waiting on the final numbers to come back after we changed it to this. We know a lot of the money has to go toward drainage, to fix drainage. I know some of you guys have been down there quite a few times. So drainage is a big deal. We're gonna have to bring up sewer lines, water lines, bring in the infield ball mix we're gonna have to use sod, because if we don't use sod, we're not gonna have grass for the next season. We're gonna lose 2 fields if we do that. Even with help from you guys, I don't see us getting that parking lot paved. But the other benefit is the matching funds for grants. There is $1 million grant out there that we are planning on applying for from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. But we have to have matching funds to do that. But we can't use that on what we're calling phase 1 right here. And if we do these parking lots in gravel, we can't even apply for that to do, we can't use that in grant to pave these parking lots because we've already disturbed the soil. So the only thing we can use it for is anything west of everything that's in color. So the plan is to do everything that's in color with our funds and hopefully some of your funds, if required, and if not required, then use the funds to build that 5th field the following year, which would start at the July 1st of 2025. I'm not sure what's left in the ARP funds and what everybody's asked for, and I don't want to be stingy and try to get everything. So I will say that we was in here, we asked for 500,000 at one point. I never got a call back. I heard on the street that it was not far enough along. I don't know what the details were, which was true. And it's still kind of a gray area just because we don't have the final numbers back of what these are going to be. We have budgetary numbers, but the next step is to approve this with our contractor, which is Meyer Najum, who we signed a build, operate, transfer with. And then they're going to reach out to all of our local contractors as well as some of their own contractors to get pricing to make sure that we're not overpaying. And then that's when we'll finalize the budget and see what we can do with the amount of money that we have. But we do know that 2.6 isn't going to come close to touching it. So my gut reaction was to ask for 750,000, but like I said, I don't want to be stingy and take away from what other people in the community are trying to do. So we would essentially take whatever we can get, and whatever we get will likely be doubled by Land and Water grant if we don't use it for this.
At what point would you have quotes or anything for us to be able to look at that?
I would conservatively, I would say within a month.
Brandon, so you're just so I can have this straight, everything in color, you believe you funded. Your thoughts are if any money comes out of ARP, it's grant match.
That's what my goal is. So if there's anything that comes out of ARP that goes to this, it's going to be unexpected. And that's going off of what Meyer Nation has told us, what they think we can do with what we have.
That's
not
the
concrete.
consulting firm you're working with?
I'm sorry?
That's the consulting firm you're working with on the
Yes.
grants?
Yeah, they build these things all over
Mhm.
Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, mainly in Indiana.
Can you explain I know we currently have 4 fields down there.
Yep.
There's 4 fields at this, and then this is 4 fields. So
It is-
the difference is making it ADA compliant. I think there was some ready
Sure,
money with
sorry, I
that.
should have said that. Yeah.
There was some ready funds
Yep.
that were issued, I believe,
Yep.
for the ADA compliance. But how does this expand what we already have? I mean, because
It's not expanded, but it's making it ADA compliant is the main thing right now. The room for expansion is there. Yeah, the 5th field would be from Land and Water. That would be the expansion, which would be here.
if you were to get that grant and you had a match for it.
That would be back here?
To the left.
And when
Oh,
you,
this way,
Yeah.
okay.
you're
but
waiting
that-
to apply for that grant
We
until,
haven't applied because we have to make sure that we have the funds here and the final draft of what it's going to look like. We have talked to them. They obviously can't tell us yes or no without going through the whole process, but they feel good about it because it's the same grant that we used for the pool, and they're very happy with how that turned out. And this is right up their alley of what that money is supposed to be.
and what is the match for, if you get $1 million, how much match? It's $1 for $1.
It's dollar match.
So you mentioned you turned the fields around or to face the concession stands or?
Yeah, so see in the background of this, you see this dirt outline right here?
Sure.
So right now this field faces this way, so if you hit a ball over center field, you hit this.
Yeah.
So we're just turning it around, so home plate's here.
And that's quite an expensive.
Right, yeah, so basically that's a whole brand new field. And
What
this
about
is just extending this out
Okay.
another 120 feet.
Okay,
The field is already there,
so this is turning this around.
correct?
This is the first that I've saw. This one, you said it was just recently revised. So okay, so is this even approved by the city yet, that this is what they want to go with?
I don't know who really approves that, but, I mean, we've talked about it.
Well, I've seen several different renderings, so I didn't know,
Mhm.
There was, I've been to a few city meetings and there was at least one or two that they said this is what it was gonna look like. So I was just curious if this was the
It would
final.
ultimately go through a parks board, which they'll see it tomorrow morning. But we do have two of the parks board members that have seen it. One's here, and the mayor, and I don't know if anybody on Board of Works has seen it or not, but I don't think they've seen this part of it, but that's kind of where we are and what our goal is. And I will note that somebody else is going to be taking this over after this week, resigning as Parks Director. So
Who do we contact with questions, would you say?
Or do you know who's taking over that we can contact?
we don't know yet. There's a couple names in the hat that's still out. I can't say those names because of their current jobs.
Right.
But both I think would be a good fit. It can go wrong with either one of them. But that decision probably won't be made until later this week or possibly early next week. But I would still stay around to try to see this. I mean, this is the whole reason I took this job, is to try to make this happen. So I'll still be around for that, to help them open the pool, make sure the pool is operated smoothly and chemicals are right, train whoever's taking my spot, try to bring them on board with all the other projects that we have going, such as Joe Strickland Park and playground down at the pool, those things. So I'll still be around. So, I mean, you're still free to call me if you have questions about this, because I'm still going to stay very involved with it to see it through. So, but is there anything in particular other than pricing? Obviously, I'm going to get that. But is there anything else that you want to know answers to, so I can work on that over the next week?
I would like to see, like you say you have 2.6 million, I would like to see what those specific funds are going to be allocated for. Like if you have the concessions already covered with ready funds, if you have the sidewalks covered with ready funds, or, what are your sources? Where did they come from? And what is that allocated to already, so that we can look at where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And then quotes, of course, I always want quotes. So,
Yeah, because I just got this at 4:00 today.
Friday, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't get it to Randy until later today, so.
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Next one, we have a combination here, and I don't know exactly what order. I put it down to Perry County Ambulance, then I got Perry County First Responder, and then some demos. So however, whoever wants to start, and I don't know which. Are you doing it, Steve, or you got? I don't.
At some point, we might all be doing this together.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of an overlapping type deal. And so,
It's kind of good because you all know what one of you don't know the other and might forget or whatever.
Which one is this?
What's that?
There's one for Perry County Ambulance. But is this first responder?
See, he's got,
Okay,
this is
thank you.
first responder. This is,
So we'll just do that one.
this other one is EMS,
Okay,
I think.
there we go.
Yeah.
kind of it runs across the borders here a little bit.
What we're looking at is trying to enhance our first responder program countywide. We feel like we would like to enhance it till we have more people responding, quicker responses. That's our goal. I have talked with Dr. Dom, who's the new medical director for Perry County EMS. And I was on vacation last week, in Florida. He sent me an email, which I have included in here, and the attachments of some things that he is suggesting we look at to try to enhance our total program so it merges well with all agencies, including EMS. The orange sheet, I kind of did a overview today of where we're at with our total number of people, total number of AEDs we have out there, and give you an overview of where some of our first responders and rescue personnel are located. Quick review, we got 151 total emergency management members. We have 54 of those that are EMA resource volunteers only. They only want to come out and assist when we have, like the major tornado, they come in and help with phone calls and things like that. They have no desire to respond on rescue runs or first responder runs. We have 11 amateur radio operators. We have 86 total rescue and first responder members, the medical responders. Of those 86, we have 49 that are trained in CPR, AED, and extrication only. We have 37 medical responders. They are also cross-trained in extrication. Might note that about 27 of those, we went through the list yesterday, we would consider as active responders. And about 10 of them only respond occasionally of the 37. Of those 37, we have 13 EMR certified, that is emergency medical responder certification. We have 15 that hold EMT certifications. 9 of those are not on the hospital staff as employees of EMS. 6 of them also are on the hospital staff of those 15. We have 1 advanced EMT, not associated with Perry County EMS. We have 8 paramedics listed on our staff. 3 of the paramedics are not currently employees of Perry County Hospital staff. 5 are. Of those people, they still respond on emergencies when they're paged out. We do cover those employees when they respond under county's insurance. Going out there, I won't read all this, but you can see the general areas, the breakdown where they live. We have an area that we do not have real good coverage as far as from Perry County staff. And that is, we do not have a good response in the very northwest corner of Clark Township, northwest corner of Perry County.
That's what I was looking at on here, like
Yes.
Siberia and over in there.
Yes.
Mhm.
We do have an agreement we have had for several years with St. Meinrad Fire. They do a wonderful job of responding into that area from Spencer County. They do respond because they have memberships in Perry County too. So they do have an obligation to respond into that area. People pay their membership for them to respond. We've got about 21 AEDs that's issued by the emergency management. You can see by the list the areas and where they're located. We have other EMDs that are not issued by emergency management listed there at the bottom. Global Sport, Perry Central Schools, Tell City. I didn't call them to see how many they got, but they have several also. So to get back to what we're here for, we are looking at a couple different things that we feel like work together to enhance the whole program. One is called the Pulse Point. I am not real familiar with this system. Like I say, I just learned about this last Wednesday. Dr. Don is a little more familiar with that, but there are some quotes in there. It looks like this system would be about $10,000 initially and about $8,000 per year upkeep. This would be a notification system that trained people could download an app onto their phone. It would be connected with our central dispatch so that it would be tied with our CAD system so that these people could be readily notified. Not only does it notify them of where the emergency is, such as a heart attack, it tells them on a map locations of equipment boxes that could be stationed throughout the county. If you ask where we're at right now, we're starting into this. We would have to canvass the county, work with EMS, work with other agencies to determine the best place to put these and receive basically permission to put these. It could be at a church, it could be at a gas station, preferably someplace that's available 24 hours a day, but somewhat climate controlled too. in these boxes would consist of a AED or AED, maybe a stop the bleed kit, and Narcan for overdoses. But again, these would be triggered in this pulse point system. They would show up on the map to tell you the quickest way to get to it. If the emergency was here and they said there's a box located here, it would show you where you can go grab that equipment. This basically keeps you from having to have every person to be equipped. They're using central locations for the equipment. Something new around here, it is used in several counties in Indiana. I have not spoke to those counties on how it works. And like I say, we've got prices in there on what it is. We also, Dr. Dama has included prices per kit, per box. This will be a weather tight type box. And like I said, he's got quotes in there on the price to equip those. Depending on the number that we're going to determine the need for, would be the total cost that we would be asking for. I say it's preliminary here tonight. I don't have those until we canvass the area. Other thing we're looking at is trying to maybe standardize or come up with some adapters so that our AEDs will match the EMS equipment. So that if we have applied pads, defibrillator pads, possibly when EMS arrives, they're not ripping those off, trashing them. We may be able to merge their equipment with ours, whether that be EMS by adapters to go with our equipment, or we look at upgrading to a different style of AEDs for future purchase. But come up with a plan so we're able to save some dollars that way. We have included some prices from Stryper on some AEDs. These are LifePak CR2s. The total number we would be looking at right now that I can see, besides whatever number of kits we come up with, the boxes throughout the county, rescue and first responders right now could use about 4. The sheriff's office is short 2, and we have applied for several grants and got them over the years. Sheriff's department could use 2, and the security committee here at the courthouse is looking at needing 3 to meet all the requirements from the courthouse inspection. The one you see over here in the corner, the lime green one, is one that I have placed there with actually on loan from rescue. If we was to get 3, that would be one that we could also use back as a first responder or rescue. I figured that one coming back to us if we was able to get that many. So we would be looking at 3 for the courthouse, 2 for the sheriff's office, possibly 4 for the first responders, excluding whatever number of boxes we come up with.
So Steve, if I'm understanding correctly, your mission with this process is to train willing individuals in life-saving skills. Hopefully they're distributed somewhat within the county. So when an ambulance is dispatched, whether it's the North Station or the hospital station, someone closer can start the process of saving the life while the ambulance is in the process of arriving. And I know it's clear that if your heart stops, minutes matter
Time is a factor.
on the successful outcome for the individual. So, and the boxes, my understanding is, would be tied into the pulse system where dispatch could open them or send a specific code to allow that responder to open that. So we wouldn't necessarily have the general public that could pull a door open.
That's what I understand. That's what I understand. The
As
third,
I'm reading through it, that's what I took out of it too.
the third request would be funding for training for additional emergency medical responders or EMRs. I think we're looking at a minimal amount there, maybe $140 for the book, and I think Perry County Hospital has reached out and offered instructors to help with it, offset this expense. We have a location to hold the classes. We have a nice classroom for that there at the Armory. I think we would be looking at a minimal cost. The key would be getting the word out to get additional people that would be trained. Another key would be to make sure that we have those people protected properly when they respond.
Mhm.
That they do have protective gear with them, and that we are covered in liability wise.
So we have 13 EMR certifications is what I think, and that's what you're saying we need to grow?
We would like to grow that, yes, we would like to grow that.
Okay.
And something I can tell you that recently we've had 3 of our EMTs that migrated over to EMS, and that is wonderful. So that's, sometimes it's a step process. We may start out as an EMR, and we may get some then that decides to take an EMT class, and that also helps our EMS system. It's very important that we work together as a group. I have stated this before. I mentioned this to Randy today. If at any time any agency feels like that they have reached the top, that they don't need to improve, it's time for that person to be removed or get out. Every agency should look that they can improve, and I feel very strong about that.
You know, and expanding also in the outer part of the county.
Yes.
That's because it's so much more big. It's so much more bigger.
Yes.
And, you know, if you've got an AED over here in Siberia and you're over in Derby, it ain't gonna do you no good. None.
I used to say we got all the national forests too.
Yeah.
So we need to really talk with that group, because probably location somewhere within that area would be a positive too. And there may be something that they would participate.
I mean, you know, and they have the lakes where they swim, and, you know, what, could we not put maybe one at one of the lakes?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
We need to look at those locations,
Yeah.
some of secure locations and where we can.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I do not have the exact amounts. Like I said, this came about since Wednesday, so I've kind of pushed to put this together. I did hold a assistant EMA director meeting yesterday, and I think that we have everybody on board. Everybody feels this is a good thing to move forward with. We have to work together.
Do you currently have these life packs, or is that what the EMS has?
We do not. The life packs that's mentioned in there, it would be a style of AED that would match exactly. If our first responders had those, EMS arrived with their style of life pack,
Mhm.
they could just clip their leads on. It's not a removal.
It's just
also
like Troy with their
Since we have
airbags.
come out with that, we are looking at maybe some simple adapters that might be able to be placed on the ambulance to go with what we have too.
I know when Troy,
You would have to
when they
replace
applied
them
for their
They're
grant,
not, right, yes.
when Troy applied for their grant for their fire station, we actually have thing now, the packs are all the same in the county. So that makes it so much, because if you've got to bring relief in, they don't have to worry about changing over, and they're all the same.
Yes.
For Tell City.
Well, thank you,
That's a
Steve.
lot of information. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And do we just reach back out to you if we have
Yes,
questions?
yes.
Or, okay.
Sure.
When will you have an amount, Steve? I'm sorry, when will you have an amount? When you look at it, how do you judge that by not knowing how many people?
It's gonna take us working together with several agencies and EMS and some of you all to determine these locations. It's gonna be a project. We can move on as rapid as possible, but to give you the exact date when we can say how many exact.
And funding, cost.
See, I think, Tony, what you're gonna do is sit down and go through this and put together what a box fully equipped costs.
That's in here.
Then we're going to have to reach out potentially to community buildings, fire stations, possibly churches, maybe even somebody that has a good location. Ideally, if these devices can stay in somewhat of a controlled environment, the batteries last longer, the
Sure,
pads last longer. And that would be helpful if we can do that. But we will need the community and then an oversized map of the county and try to determine where we can put these in and what kind of locations we can get. And I think that's just a matter of putting it out to see who is willing to volunteer their
The number of
their
people.
place and say, and we want to have them
I understand
on the outside of the building.
dollar amount.
With these, Steve,
I mean, I don't know whether it's gonna take 20 or 40 though, that's the problem. There's no reason for us to try 30 if we can only get 20 of them landed successfully.
Chip away is remaining funds.
They'll have to.
Think about this.
Yeah, they'll have to engage to see what kind of response from the Perry County community.
Okay.
As far as volunteering for locations. And the more we get, the
Did
more
you
we
want to
can
say something?
distribute.
I was going to kind of answer part of that, actually. Mayor Kale and I met.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When you talk from the crowd, nobody
Yeah,
knows
sorry.
who you are.
They're not in City Fire. Mayor Kale and I also met with Dr. Dom. His initial conversation with us is possibly starting with 5 boxes and moving them throughout the county first. He also agreed that the city would be on board to assist in any way possible. He supports it fully. He also would like to see, the city, if we can get people to train also, to add to the county group, 100% behind it. So anything the city can do to help.
Thank you.
So.
Sounds good.
I would want
It's
more
good
than
that everybody's
5
on,
boxes.
one city.
Yeah, I think
We've got too big of a count.
Yeah, it's too
Is the
large.
problem, and
I'd
it's,
say more than close to 10, maybe
Yeah.
5, I think.
whenever we think of where we're dispatching an ambulance
I'll probably
from,
have some questions.
It takes
once I
time.
Review everything, so
and
I'll send it
time
to you.
is critical.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
let's go with the deal.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
Thank you.
Ambulance.
Strike it.
Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brandon Berger. I am the Director of EMS for Curry County EMS. And just to kind of hit some points home, I brought in, or Dr. Don had arranged for Tanner to do a quick overview and quick demonstration of some of the equipment and why it is important. So he wanted a subject matter expert to come in and hit some of these more pricey items, including our cardiac monitors, the Lucas device, which we will talk about more here in a moment. And he also has the AED in question that Steve House was speaking about. Here is the AED model, right, Tanner? That is going to be included in these boxes placed around the community. Tanner, do you want just a moment?
Yeah, I'll briefly walk through all this stuff and then, looks like this is best place to do a demo.
You want to get it up on
maybe?
top here so we can,
Yeah.
cameras won't pick it up on the floor.
Try that. Let's see here.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, this is a CPR device, specifically a Lucas device by the company that Tanner represents. And this is what we are proposing, and he's going to demonstrate or explain some topics. Again, you're not hearing it from myself. You're not hearing it from Dr. Dom. You're hearing it from a subject matter expert of why these pieces of equipment are so important in our environment.
So, yeah, thanks for the introduction. My name is Tanner Sizemore. I'm your local striker rep. So Lucas, Life Pack, AEDs, all that stuff is kind of what I'm, trained to come out here and teach on. So, I was asked to come out and just talk about why it's important to invest in these products. So we'll start with the LifePak 15. This is a cardiac monitor defibrillator. And for those that don't know, LifePak 15 goes with these guys on every single run that they go on. So every scene, every house that they're in, the LifePak is with them. This gives them valuable information about patient vitals, blood pressure, oxygen levels, things like that. But in the instance of cardiac arrest, this is actually the same device that provides the shock that defibrillates the patient. So EMS's current life packs, their current monitors are about 8 or 9 years old. So why that's important is that per the FDA, the expected service life of cardiac monitors is only 8 years. So they're beyond their expected service life, and what they have are the LifePak V1. So version 1 is what that means. And essentially, there have been updates to the LifePak 15 over time, including different parts internally and different softwares. The version 1, those parts are now obsolete. The software is obsolete. So if anything were to go wrong with their monitors, and again, this is a piece of equipment that goes on every single run and quite literally can save someone's life. If something were to go wrong with that, we can no longer replace those parts. And so it's just a matter of it's an important piece of equipment that you do have to maintain and upgrade. So Life Pack 15, and again, I can answer more questions as we go. I just want to be respectful of your time.
Brandon, how
So
many of those do we have and what?
we have 4 currently, and we are asking for 4 of the newer models.
So they're all in that same 8-year, 9-year?
Yes, sir.
phase?
Yes, sir.
So again, all 8 or 9 years beyond that 8-year service life and expected service life, I should say, and again, obsolete. So if anything were to go wrong, we cannot get the parts. Our suppliers don't make them anymore. Stryker didn't want to have to obsolete it, but it was just a matter of we couldn't get the parts. Second is the Lucas device. So what this is a mechanical CPR device. What that means is when someone goes into cardiac arrest, first thing you want to do is start manual compressions. You want to start doing heart compressions, chest compressions to pump that blood to and from the heart. That's what these guys do whenever there's a cardiac arrest. But what we know about manual compressions is that they're not always perfect. Any one person can do them different from another. So if I were to get on scene, I could do compressions completely different than you do or completely different than Brandon does. We could do them a little too hard, too soft, too fast, too slow. The Lucas device, on the other hand, helps to give perfect compressions nearly every single time. So there are 5 things, according to the American Heart Association, that make for good compressions. You have to have the correct rate. You have to have the right depth. You want to maximize your time doing compressions on the chest. You want to allow for a full chest recoil, and you don't want to overventilate the patient. The Lucas helps to automate all 5 of those things. So not only does it provide perfect compressions, but what it also does is it allows EMTs, paramedics, whoever's on scene to deal with the many other things that they have to do in a cardiac arrest. That could be pushing drugs, that could be loading the patient onto a cot, loading them into an ambulance, or even as something as simple as talking to the family, telling them what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what's happening. With the Lucas device, it frees up hands. It does the work of 2 or 3 first responders, because typically in manual compressions, one person is doing 2 minutes of compressions, then you're switching off to someone else. With the Lucas device, you can get nonstop compressions from a machine that's doing them at the right rate and right depth, and making sure we're automating those 5 pieces that the AHA recommends. One other point to that is that in a county as big, geographically speaking, as Perry County, sometimes you do have long transports in the back of an ambulance. That can be as long as 30 minutes sometimes, if not more. So if a patient were to be in cardiac arrest in the back of an ambulance, what that would mean without a Lucas device is someone is unbuckling in the back of that ambulance, climbing on top of the patient, trying to hold on with one hand, do compressions with the other. So you're not doing good compressions, 50, 60, 70 miles per hour down the road, and you're opening them up to happen. With the Lucas device, however, during a transport, it's a matter of pressing a button and you get those same compressions and nobody is having to unbuckle and open themselves up to injury. So with all of that, what I like to say with the Lucas, seeing is believing. So I'm just going to turn it on, let you see it. There we go.
Thank you.
And so that way you can see kind of what's going to happen. So it's just a matter of pressing a couple of buttons. I'm going to hold it here so it doesn't fall off the ledge. But what we're doing right now is compressions at 2.1 inches of depth and 102 compressions per minute. Both of those numbers fall within the American Heart Association's recommended rate and depth. So we are getting the proper compressions over and over and over again to increasing blood flow to and from the brain for the patient. And so what you're guaranteeing and what you are maximizing is the best possible care for your communities and for your patients. And at the same time, in terms of transportation and transport, you're protecting your first responders by allowing them to stay buckled in and not have to do risky compressions in the back of an ambulance.
Is this just for adults or do you have pediatric also?
So there's no age or weight limit. It's essentially We defer to the American Heart Association's recommended, type of person, and that's not an age or weight. It's signs of puberty. And then typically if the patient fits, it works. So there's no age or weight necessarily.
And what's the life expectancy of
8 years.
8 years?
8 years old, yes.
And you have a request for 2 or 4?
Uh,
I think.
3.
Oh,
Split the difference.
Yeah.
Three units, yes, 3 units.
okay.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, I can't explain to you how valuable this piece of equipment is. We do not have it in this county. However, I have used this piece of equipment in other counties. It is very valuable, just like Tanner mentioned. Imagine you are in the back of that ambulance and down a, between Derby and Rocky Point, and being thrown around the back of the ambulance. Not only that, but it guarantees your loved one is getting adequate care the entire time. And from Easy Street in the far northeast or northeast corner, or you're looking at Ferdinand Forest Road, that would literally take us 50 minutes to get there. So this is ensuring that this care is being provided. And just like Tanner said, again, I can't emphasize enough. You have 2 to 3 people, and why you have 2 to 3 people who are performing CPR, because you get tired, and you have to have that many people to swap out. And it does have better outcomes. And Tanner, if he wants to jump in on this, so if we're using this piece of equipment, you are more likely, or your loved one is more likely to leave the hospital with their memory, their brain, and everything intact if we are able to get a pulse back. And that is something that is tremendous.
Right. So to that point, it's like I said, when you're doing perfect compressions, you are increasing the blood flow both to and from the brain. So with the Lucas device, over 99% of survivors leave the hospital in good neurological outcome, meaning they still have a functional mind, which is not always the case for cardiac arrest survivors. So what we're doing is we're just pumping blood to the brain, and having that chest recoil helps to actually pull it back. So it's a full blood flow. You're increasing the amount of blood to the brain versus manual compressions. So all of these things help to maintain the brain while a patient is in cardiac arrest, and then helps to kind of bridge that gap to when you can defibrillate and defibrillate out of that fatal rhythm. So that's really the game between doing compressions and being able to defibrillate, and how these things kind of tie together.
Again, I just want to reiterate the point, 99% good neurologic outcome. That means you're leaving the hospital with all your faculties in place.
I have a question on this Lucas machine and maintenance plan.
Yes.
On these, how are these calibrated? How often are they calibrated?
So with the maintenance plan that was quoted, that is in the price that you guys have, that's a 4-year service. And so what that includes is the cost of any and all repairs that come up, and it also includes an annual preventative maintenance. And so in that preventative maintenance, that's when it's calibrated to make sure it's still functioning correctly, because at the end of the day, it is a piston firing device. And so you do want to make sure it's correctly calibrated.
I'd get the broke one, so
Absolutely.
And just to touch on that, and I know it's mentioned here, so with our hospital, we already have a subcontracted company who comes in and does maintenance. And not to try and sell Tanner short here, but the company who we already paid to come in and service our equipment, they are cleared to service that machine and the cardiac monitor. So that price in itself will be removed from our total price, whatever that dollar amount would be. So it would be savings that we already looked into to help facilitate getting the product. Does anyone have any other questions for Tanner here? And then I will continue on briefly. And
Just the only thing for you is you need 4 cardiac monitors, but only
Correct.
3 of those?
So with having if you guys have, I would, but to make sure that we have our primary trucks available.
Okay.
Because we're not going to run more than 3 units anyway, or 3 ambulances at a time. So if one truck, say we go to the shop or to be out of service, we can take that unit and easily place it on another ambulance where it's always available to the community.
Thank you.
And then, so that's Tanner's portion, and I just want to briefly go over what was already presented to you all in regards to what we are asking for in totality. So we are asking for option for the future for our fleet. As everyone knows, we have an aging fleet, and we have a quote for $190,400 for 2024, and that would make us able or eligible to take one of our existing ambulances, which we have two, and they will be able to go off for approximately 3 months and be remounted. So basically take the box, put it on a new chassis, new driveline, new engine, and get it back in service for us. Because our boxes are in serviceable enough condition that's very feasible.
That's what our new ambulance is.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
That we just received.
Also to mention, for options in the future, whenever we have those two ambulances that we cannot do that to, we may have to look at 2026 for additional funding. Of course, that is down the road. Number two is our Furno cot. As everyone knows, or if you don't, we just received a new remounted ambulance. However, we have 5 ambulances now. 4 of the 5 have our power stretchers in them. So also, again, saving back, saving time. You're not having to manually load a patient. 4 of those trucks do have a power stretcher in them. The 5th does not. So we do need to purchase another Furno cot to replace to actually go into the ambulance that we just acquired. Number 3, again, the cardiac monitors that we just went over. So we have a new model that may be coming out, something that's coming up. So we have a preliminary price there. Again, the maintenance plan will not be included on that. So that would be a saving of at least $190,705. The Lucas machines, again, 3 units, $70,645. Video laryngoscopes. A crucial role as a paramedic, and I want to explain what a video laryngoscope is. So say if you're not breathing on your own and you cannot protect your airway. And what does that mean? You are altered, you've maybe had a stroke, you've had a heart attack to where you're not able to respond and act appropriately, so you can't manage your secretions. So if you were to vomit, what may happen? It may go down to your lungs, and that will give you a lot of trouble, right? So what a video laryngoscope is, or what a laryngoscope is, it's a device that we have. It's basically a cylindrical handle that has a blade on it. And that's what I'm going to use as a paramedic, to where I'm going to look into your mouth, I'm going to manually lift your epiglottis, and I'm going to put in a breathing tube. Now, you said, well, you already have that. Well, let me explain what a video laryngoscope is. Video laryngoscopes, you have a 80% more first-time successful pass. And what does that mean? So that means if I go in and I'm trying to attempt to perform that procedure, I am 80% more likely to perform that procedure adequately with a video laryngoscope. And basically what it is, you have a little screen on, and there's a camera to where I can look down in your airway, your anatomy, and be able to insert that breathing tube. That also helps with time of doing that procedure. The longer it takes for people to perform that procedure, the less we go without oxygen to the brain, right? And that's very important to maintaining our good neurologic outcome. So very important, $8,468, and that is for 3 units. Again, 4 would be wonderful, but that would give us our bare minimum. Number 6 is our GIS system, much like what Steve was mentioning, how that would be beneficial in an ambulance. Say we go way out in the county and to Tiger Road, say, and there's an address on a mailbox with 5 other mailboxes on one road, right? Well, this system could say, oh, they're pinging here at this house, and it would help direct us. It will actually direct us to where your residence is, where you're calling from in an emergency. And that is very valuable because it cuts down the amount of time that we have to navigate, go down to the road and find out that we're wrong and turn around and come back. Also, helps with safety. say if we go to a residence, and myself and my partner who operate by ourselves, 90% of the time, we go into a residence and something happens to us. And no one can reach us. They know where we're at, right? So also important safety feature. And then the B point to there on number 6 is the cradle point, and basically that's Starlink. It's a mobile hotspot, so we can have communication and get that real-time data. The last item I want to talk about is the hand-tebi mobile. And what hand-tebi is, it was originally designed specifically for pediatric patients, kids, right? It has since grown. Hand-tebi does encompass adults. But say at the middle of the night, I'll be the first to admit to you, we don't take care of a super big number of kids, correct? And they're different. You have different medication dosages, different procedures that you have to do because they're pediatric patients. And depending on their size, those medication doses changes, those medications changes, everything changes. So what this app does is I can go, it's custom tailored to our protocols. So it knows what medications we carry and knows what concentrations we carry of our medication, which is also very important. I can go up and I can say, okay, this is a 15 kilogram patient. And I put that in and it auto-populates everything for me. It tells me what drugs I'm going to give. It's going to tell me how much fluid to draw in the middle of the night, how much of a medication to draw. And why that important is at 3 o'clock in the morning when you've had a half hour of sleep, and this is a difference between a decimal place could potentially kill somebody. This is very important. And again, it's integrated with our own protocols, our own standard operating procedure for our service. And that's $7,238 and then $3,250 as far as annual cost. And that can be any device. So someone who hires it new, we can put it on their cell phone, we can put it on the tablets in the ambulance, we can put it on computers. And it just makes providing care for pediatric patients and adults safer. Does anyone have any questions? I
hope you're on the ambulance if I ever need one. I mean, really.
Again, all this equipment is, and I have about 6 minutes, I think. All this equipment, we have gone years and years without. Can you say we can do it without? Sure, we have it. But can we provide better care to you, your family, your loved one with this equipment? And the answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
The only thing, I'll email you, but I'd like to have the life expectancy so that we can, if this is ever, if this goes through or this is funded.
I'm assuming 8 years.
Yes. Anything
okay.
strike related is 8 years.
Oh, okay.
So
just for some of these other things.
Yes, absolutely, like the video laryngoscope.
Yeah, I'd just like to know and have that.
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest
Because
thing.
if you purchase these things, the intention would be to budget properly to maintain them in the future.
Get them in the cycle.
That would be-
Yes, absolutely. Does anyone have any questions?
What are the warranties?
So as far as warranties, what about your products?
1 year on everything.
1 year warranty, and then again, we do have our service agreement through our contractor that we have now that's already performing work at the hospital. So, and that's a saving of, the maintenance plan, there's 190,000, and then there's another 23.5, so 200.
That 190, that's the total for the devices.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without the service plan.
Gotcha.
It was something like 220, I believe, with the service plan.
Gotcha, okay, all right, perfect.
So you brought up budgeting in the future. I'm not privy to the council and commissioners. Was any of this brought up during the budget process last year? Is this all new stuff?
No, several of these things were asked for by the Perry County Memorial Hospital, and they were not funded. The cardiac monitors were asked for, the Lucas machines were asked for, the video laryngoscopes were asked for, the uniforms were asked for, and an ambulance was asked for.
So I'm taking it was Educate me,
There was a little bit, I mean, I don't have my.
some of it was approved, some of it wasn't. But none of the stuff that you're talking about
None of
was
this
approved.
equipment was approved, no.
None of this was approved, no.
The only thing
How long
is
was
they put
this,
aside a little bit
how
of
long
money.
was this Lucas machine and the cardiac monitors? Cardiac monitor's been out for a long time, we're just upgrading. But this Lucas machine, how long has it been out?
Years.
How long?
Years.
Years, and we have never had one.
So
I'm just judging the impression it made on me, that's why I asked, has this ever been
That was,
brought up?
This was my first budget session, but they did ask. So,
Okay.
and I,
So this is
I
the
did try.
Lucas, to your question, the Lucas 3.1. So we've had Lucas 1, 2, 3, and 3.1. So we're on our fourth version of it. It's been out for going on 15 years as a total, so.
You guys have seen this before, but now they're here in Perry County.
and I think that demonstration was really impactful. I mean,
Yeah.
that was,
I'd never seen one before.
I'm just a little taken
That was
back.
pretty cool myself.
And Tony, that's part of our challenge. If we use ARP funds to
yeah,
get us through this, we can do this. But we need to plan.
Yeah.
That's why when Kelly asks, how long do they last?
Mhm.
We gotta consider that in the budgets going forward, because if we put these devices in and then don't have sufficient funding to, when they become obsolete,
Yeah.
replace them,
Then why
then
do it?
we're just going up and down and we're not gaining
I
anything.
understand.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just taking back, this is not new.
I think the people, citizens of Perry County deserve this.
I can tell you,
They
it's an
all
excellent
deserve
machine.
this, everybody in this county.
Yes, it's an excellent machine, and it works, just like Tanner said. I mean, it takes the 2 or 3 people out, and it's safe.
Mhm.
If anyone can believe it's dangerous in the back of an ambulance.
well, the exhaustion, just depending on where you're
It is,
at to
absolutely.
do that all the way into town.
And not only that, but that's in an ambulance, and then, we put people on gurneys. Well, we can't effectively do chest compressions to where this machine can. This machine absolutely can. For me, getting you even from the hospital, to the back of the ambulance, into the hospital and moved over to the bed, per AHA, we have stopped doing effective CPR long enough to where you've lost all that circulation to your brain, and you could have damage from that.
And it's also very concerning to me that your cardiac monitors are basically obsolete if you need, I mean, what's the lead time on one? If you had 2 go bad tonight,
We would be in big trouble.
that's
How
not good.
quickly can these be purchased?
A couple of months is the lead time, give or take. I mean, it
Okay.
Just depends on the product.
I was
Is there any
I'm just asking
stats
questions.
when you treat the heart, like this,
As far as,
well, I mean, the guy's having a heart attack or he's not going to fail and he's having a stroke, but is there any stats on how many cardiac patients they can transport?
I can pull the number of cardiac patients, and I can tell anyone in this room,
They did.
chest pain, respiratory distress, and stroke calls are probably our 3 biggest calls in this county, because we live in the Ohio River Valley, and people don't eat healthy. We have a lot of chest pain. But it not only, so with this cardiac monitor, not only does it shock, but this is how we read and interpret a rhythm. So say you get a chest pain, or you think you're having a heart attack, I have to hook you up to this machine, and I'm trained to interpret that rhythm, and I have to be able to interpret. So if it's a poor quality or I don't have it, I can't diagnose or treat you.
Yeah, I can see where the machine would be a lot better. Sure.
Well, you have to have a cardiac monitor.
System.
There's no question.
There's no, I mean, yeah.
To do your job, yeah. That's every patient, right? I mean, you're hooking it up.
You're using it to some degree, like Tanner said, because this machine not only just looks at the heart, blood pressure, oxygen level,
Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
thank you
Thank
for
you
that
very much.
demonstration, that was very impressive, very impressive.
Next one up is Derek Llewellyn, Tell City Police
Thank you.
Department.
You ain't got one of them things too, do you? Not that fancy?
Afraid I might bore you a little bit after that. So,
Thank you.
Where's my candy? There was candy.
oh, they knew what they were doing. Good evening. I'm Derek Llewellyn, Chief of Police for Tell City Police Department. And I am here to present on behalf of the police department here tonight. First, let me say I greatly appreciate the opportunity to come in and have some of your time to present this. I recognize that you all have a big responsibility in being stewards of the money and trying to fund all these different important projects. So I've been watching the meetings tonight from remotely on my way down here and whatnot. And, my proposal is regarding AEDs, which I'll get into in just a moment. But the project that was discussed about placing AEDs around the county, I strongly support that. I think that's fantastic, and that kind of certainly goes along with the presentation that I want to give tonight. Which, you know, when I stopped by the office, listened to that conversation, one of the things I did, you'll see a map included in your packet there. What that is, I did a screen grab from real time, just moments before the meeting here, to kind of show you, to illustrate my point that I want to make tonight. Those green and gray dots that you see on that map, those are Tell City police cruisers in our community and around our county in real time right now, or just moments before the meeting. The green ones are actually on-duty fleet vehicles, and the gray ones are off-duty fleet vehicles. I share that to say that we operate 20 fleet vehicles at Tell City Police Department, and we currently, 14 of those 20 are equipped with AEDs. We have 16 police cruisers that are regularly occupied and in service within our community, and the other ones are considered pull vehicles. Ideally, we would love to have an AED in every police car, but our main focus is to ensure that we have them in at least the cruisers that are occupied regularly. These police cars are highly visible. They're near our parks, as you can see on the map. They're in our neighborhoods. They're at our sporting events. They are in our highly attended areas such as Walmart, high traffic areas. They're out there day and night, 24/7. So the idea of having an AED in these police cars just speaks volumes in terms of accessibility to the life-saving devices. I strongly believe that I'm a proponent of our police cars being operated even in an off-duty capacity. We allow our officers to use their police vehicles anywhere in Perry County on or off duty. And there's a lot of reasons for that. These cars are equipped with these AEDs and they're equipped with other life-saving equipment. And I have no doubt, I've seen it happen many times, that these officers will engage on or off duty to assist where needed, especially when it's a life-threatening situation like we have seen many times. So, that is why we need these devices in the police cars. So that is the proposal I want to make tonight is, there's a very high propensity that our officers, along with other law enforcement officers in the community, are going to be the first on scene to these, calls. We've demonstrated that a number of times. Our EMS is terrific, but they are going to have a delayed response in relationship to the officers. Enclosed in the packet, I shared with you several incidents that we have celebrated success here in Tell City, where our officers were in fact the first on scene quickly able to deploy these AEDs and, get successful response. So that is certainly, some examples of how these things are used and the importance of them. A couple of the things that I shared in the packet are quotes with vendors that we have used. The AED that we are familiar with is different from the AED that was presented by Perry County EMS. I am not opposed to the AED that they presented. I think it's if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. I just shared with what we use now, what I know the most about. That's what the quotes that I provided. I did receive an email from Dr. Dom with his opinion on which AEDs he felt that we should pursue, and I did include that quote. I believe it's the same quote that was shared with you by some of the other presenters tonight. So in terms of expense, they line up pretty close. I think the one that they presented was just a slightly higher than the one that we did. Something that is important to me that I want to make sure that we address at some point would be the sustainability, upfitting these devices with batteries and pads. That's been a real challenge for us at the police department in the past. We want to be quick to respond to these events. We want to go in, place our pads on patients quickly. I know that it surely gives the family members that are there some comfort knowing that we are exhausting our efforts, doing everything we can. Unfortunately, some of these events, the patient may be too far gone by the time we get there, but we give every effort nonetheless. The pads that we are currently using are about $80 to replace the pads. Best records that I could see in the past 2 years were averaging anywhere from 10 to 12 events a year where our officers are applying pads on patients. So, replacing those pads each time certainly does add up. Since my time as the chief of police, we've replaced batteries and devices a number of times. The batteries are in the ballpark of $175 to $200 for the batteries that we use. They say that they may last 5 years before the batteries need to be replaced. So I think some of that is probably how they are stored and whatnot. So I did bring the device that we use in. One of the things that I think is important and why we use this particular model is the hard case. We feel like this is very important for law enforcement. This is a Pelican case, which is the same type of case that a lot of other equipment are stored in. With police cars having to drive, in emergency mode at times, there are items become displaced in the trunks or inside the passenger compartments. So having something that protects the device is critical. One of the other things I really like about this, whenever we deploy, we keep a number of things in our kits. We keep Narcan in our kits. We keep scissors so that we can remove people's shirts so that we can apply the pads. We also keep those latex gloves. We have pocket mask in ours, replacement batteries, and a few other things that we need, such as razors and things like that we can shave. But if we have a patient that has a really hairy chest and we need to expose the skin to place the pads on, that's important. So we also, this particular model has a infant key or child key with it. So in that situation, we just take the key here and it actually gets applied inside the AED, and that reduces the voltage of the device down. That's appropriate for the child. We can still use the same pads. We're not having to buy infant pads or whatnot. Same pads, we just use the key to reduce it down. These things are very simple to use. Once we apply them, it's voice instructions all the way through. So, our guys have they're very comfortable with them. There's no hesitation in deploying that. But we keep these easily accessible so that we can just grab them and everything. Most of the things we need for a cardiac event or an overdose, we have right here in one kit. So that would be, the thing that would cause me to be favorable of this particular unit would be the hard case, but I would suspect that we could get a hard case for the other model as well. So I don't know that would be necessarily an issue.
So Derek, do you leave those in the car all the time so they'll get cold?
Yes, we do. This has, of course, some foam inside of it that will, the inside around, there's a molded area that kind of protects it. That does help with the elements. If it gets really, really cold, it'll beep. You'll hear just a beeping that's very noticeable. That will tell us that it's too cold to operate. So at that point, we would move it, somewhere closer to where it's getting exposed to heat from the car or whatever. That doesn't happen very often. It has to get really cold out before we hear that. So
I'm just thinking when we store them out in the county, it's going to be one of the challenges.
absolutely, yes.
Would your pads be the same as Steve's pads? We want to get on the same page here.
That is the same defibrillator that we have on 90% of them for rescue.
Okay.
That is the same defibrillator that the sheriff uses.
Okay.
The EMS would need to get an adapter to go from their light pack to those.
And you said it was like $50.
I don't have that right on.
Yeah. I did research that, Randy, and, we had met with Dr. Dom, and Steve was in that meeting, and the sheriff, and, I expressed that concern in that meeting that, I wish we could find a way to where we could get our pads replaced maybe on scene by EMS. And we discussed it then. They brought to my attention, Dr. Dom and his crew brought to my attention that they do make an adapter. So I researched that with one of our vendors, and they were $50. The adapter does not fit this device. It would fit the Striker, okay? And our pads are able to be used on their device. So, that would be one option I feel that would be cost effective to be able to maybe have them stock the same pads that we use on their trucks. They would be able to use their AED and we would be able to use ours. In the event, which happens most of the time, we get there first, we apply the pads on, we can leave the pads on at that point. When they take over the patient, they can hook our pads up to their device using that adapter. And, it would be able to work just the same as it would if they were using their Striker pads. That's my understanding of how that works.
$50 is nothing compared to someone's life.
That's correct, yeah. And, I mentioned the cost of replacement pads, and I completely agree with you. I don't mind, and I know the taxpayers wouldn't mind absorbing those costs to save lives, so we completely get that. One of the challenges that we have is that the same appropriation, the same budget that we use to replenish medical supplies is the same budget that we use to replenish bulletproof vests or ammunition or anything else that's police related. So we're sharing those responsibilities and needs with a budget that is already challenged. So that's something that we face.
Yeah, those pads saved my life.
So you're asking for 2?
Yes, we are asking for 2. That would allow us to have, again, 16 of our 20 cars equipped all the time. And, I think that, we use these cars, like I said, we work sporting events, we work parks, the Schweitzer Fest. So everywhere our officers are is an AED, and it
Just even out on patrol even.
yes.
Yep. Good.
Replacing 4 would be easier than 27 between the 2 of you.
I just think if they do
Buying
this,
27 new. that wouldn't
there
make
may
sense.
be a transitional period as the batteries and the devices get aged out like the other equipment. Do a little planning.
Yeah.
Determine if this is the path we're going down, and then transition, maybe it's over an 8 or 10 year period of time.
Right.
As the devices fail, and then we'll get on the same platform.
Yes.
So that's for somebody outside of my expertise.
One other thing that I will mention as far as, statistics, I did do a little research from a reputable, documenting site that we use to just get the average response time for police. And nationwide, it varies a little bit state to state, but nationwide, it's anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. The police are on scene. That's nationwide. And we know there are areas in Perry County, to no fault of their own, but an ambulance is not going to be able to reach that area in 20 minutes, let alone 5 minutes or 6 minutes. But there may be a sheriff deputy in that area, or a Tell City police officer that may be, just driving through that area or whatnot. So having these devices there for that early intervention is critical.
Yes, it is.
For a properly trained neighbor.
Correct. Yes.
That's with equipment nearby.
Yes.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You have your information here. If we have questions, we can
Yes.
email you, I
You guys
guess.
got a card on front.
Yeah, and I will talk to our vendor as well that we normally do business with, that we're established with, and get a updated quote of that particular striker. I'm sure they probably carry it as well, and see if it happens, how it compares to the quote that Dr. Dom got. So
Yeah.
if that's what you would prefer, if we are in fact rewarded, if that's, you would prefer us to stay consistent with them, I would be happy to do that.
There's some other options too, through some other grant opportunities. So if this is something that they generally want to look into, I think there's opportunities there also.
We have been, we've attempted some other options for these type of things. Most of the grants that we apply for are police equipment, to be honest with you. We're trying to get bulletproof vests, body cameras, things like that. So, we don't have a lot of grant opportunities for medical specific equipment. We have tried a couple local options, one of them being the Southern Indiana Power Roundup, things like that. And I haven't been successful with that. And I think that's probably because we have a lot of volunteer agencies and things that we're competing with. Rightfully so, I can understand why they would be awarded first. So that's just a challenge that we have, and hopefully, we can continue to try to get more of these devices around the county. I think it's great. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Derek.
Next one up is girls softball, Tell City softball, Lisa Noble.
Thank you for having me again. I'm Lisa Noble. I'm revisiting from November of 2022. I believe you have information already in your packets for this evening. I come to you as a parent and a coach of, we have a Ruckus local travel program for the girls in our community, and we also have a non-school junior high program as well. And so back in the fall, just to kind of revisit, we had come with a request for a practice facility. And so that information was presented and we were approved. And at that time, it was asked that we were to receive a long-term agreement with the school where the facility would go because of the location where the facility would be built, that the city and the school would have some type of long-term agreement because of the use of the barn, so that the team would continue to be able to use it, so that we had some, I guess, certainty. And so about December, I think January of this year, that agreement is in place. And so because time has passed, I'm kind of revisiting with you this evening. A few things have kind of transpired with that, with the long-term agreement now in place, and the school now in ownership of the fields. We are able to proceed with the building of the barn. Now what has happened, Engineer Associates has come in, and because now the school has ownership of the property, not the city, there's some new stipulations with the building of the facility that have now had to be submitted to the state. Those have come back. Those are already,
Those are what we have, okay.
those are there, for you to kind of review, along with three, different estimates that also include some of the different, things that have reflected the scope of work that has changed. We've also, talked with, Tell Electric Department, on some different in-kind things that they've been willing, to do in terms of movement of light poles and such. I have met with, Moser Crushed Stone, waiting to kind of hear back from them. I've asked, request on some in-kind donation, for concrete. And so we have sought out some various in-kind, materials, if you will, to offset the cost. But we are very much committed to the project moving forward. I do come to you this evening from the initial request, because we are looking at, a different set of requirements now. We do have obviously a different budget that we are looking at, and we are hoping that you will consider the difference, with us moving forward. If you would consider allotting, the difference, a portion of the difference, something that we can maybe consider moving forward, if we can, maybe reevaluate the budget, that we initially considered back in November of 2022.
So something you had was the bathrooms. That wasn't something that was originally in your.
Correct,
I
correct.
went back and watched, and I didn't think that was.
Right, so we originally, we pretty much mimicked the baseball facility, down at the high school baseball field. We pretty much took that and made that essentially what that was. There was no indoor restroom. We moved from left field to right field. We have moved it, Engineer Associates moved that over. We were hoping we could still maybe not have to utilize a restroom area because the restrooms are there right off of the sidewalk area. But it is still figured in for that. We are still, very much going to look at any other in-kind work, like I mentioned with Moser's and with, the electric department. I didn't want to go too far into who other business entities, other means of who can do this, who can do that. I wanted to talk with you first to see where things are, knowing that we gathered all the information we needed for you to kind of finish up from your request in terms of the long-term agreement. And then I felt once we had decided kind of where we stood, with the school and the agreement, and if you were willing to help with the budget, then we knew that we would continue to pursue however else we could.
So you've got everything back from the state, and this is
Yes.
all fine,
Mhm.
okay.
Yes,
So the prices that you got, those are complete without any in-kind contribution,
correct.
right?
So that would be the max. That would be the maximum. That, yes, and that, there was a spreadsheet. So that amount, then there's another probably 20,000 on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so it varies. There are three very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are three different, very different ones, minus concrete, and then anything else,
This is
obviously.
minus concrete
Concrete's not figured in at all, so this would be the
on any of
most.
them, okay.
Correct,
Because it'd be 4-inch thick and
right.
24 2-inch
Mhm.
grid on
Yeah.
board.
So your ask is whatever we can do for the difference.
Correct. From the initial.
Originally,
Which
that's
is
what I just
80
looked up, is 81,000.
81,
yeah.
What was allotted
Mhm, right,
for that.
And the reason is because the school purchased the fields and you have different regulations that you have to do with
Correct.
this building versus if the city was to own it.
correct. There were, at that point, Engineer Associates
Yeah, I see that.
stepped in and drew up the site plan and sent that off to the state, and there were, you can see it's included there, all of the things that they required.
I see you have 3 quotes.
Yeah, and so we have three. I think they're are pretty, we've got, three. They're very, I think, they all have something different to add to compare. So I think they were. And again, nothing changed since we spoke originally. The goal is still very much the same. The size, nothing has changed dimension-wise on it. The only thing we've had to add is what's been required, is just space for, they did want plumbing, for a restroom space.
The state,
Yes, restroom space, and then, we would put in, heat for not air, but heat, for the winter months, and then, electrical's already included, obviously, so.
Okay.
Any questions?
no, you gave us a lot of information here, so I appreciate it.
So yeah, like I said, we appreciate anything you're willing to consider.
Is your contact information on here, or?
I know Randy has my email.
Okay, we can get it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
I appreciate it.
Next one up is Derby Community Center. Barry Stiles.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. So good evening. My name is Barry Stiles, and I serve as president of the Derby Community Association. So we have 3 board members here. Our association is made up of 74 members of the Derby community. We have 3 officers. We have 5 board of directors positions. 3 of those are here. Justin Zarfos, Brian Hammock, and Steve Stimley, all 3 serve on our board. To tell you a little bit about the DCA, our primary objective is the continued beautification of the riverfront in order to promote tourism to Perry County. Derby is currently home to no less than 10 businesses, including 2 stores, a tavern, restaurant, boat storage facilities, a construction excavation business, and numerous vacation cabin rentals. Derby's host to a wide range of leisure activities such as boating, swimming, hiking, fishing, hunting, Jeep runs, classic cars, motorcycles from all over the country come to Derby multiple times every year to see the beauty of the area, and to take in the river and all the scenic areas. A brief history of what our community has been able to accomplish in the last several years. I'm just going to run through this real quick. In 2015, the Derby Community Association took possession of Mulver Park in Derby. We now maintain that entire park along with the playgrounds and the shelter house, picnic tables. In 2015, we purchased the Derby boat ramp, so that now falls under our purview, and we're responsible for the Derby boat ramp and the surrounding property there. In 2016, we built the Derby Community Center. I'm sure most of you have probably seen that. It's a very nice facility. It completed construction in 2016. It provides a beautiful venue for weddings and parties and showers, graduation parties and such, family reunions. In 2017, we installed a state-of-the-art public address system at the community center. Also in 2017, we completed a complete paving project around the community center. Then in 2019, we completed a beautification project on the large mooring cell that sits out in the river. So now we got a ramp that goes across the mooring cell. It's got railings all the way around it. It's got decorative concrete. So there's actually weddings that can be held out there and has been. In 2023, we completed the Derby boat dock and seawall project. And if you haven't seen that, that's quite a piece of structure that we added. Boats from all up and down the Ohio River are able to come in and dock and go to the restaurant, go to the store, go to the park. We're able to moor boats of all sizes there, from large cabin cruisers to pleasure craft. And then most recently in November of 2023, we completed the paving project around the Derby boat ramps. Now our boat ramp is totally paved with striped parking places and parking spots for boats and for trailers. So as we move forward, we would like to propose to the committee a project to construct a walking trail at the Derby Association property. According to the Indiana DNR, based on counts from 65 trail counters around the state, trail use is shown to have increased more than 31% in 2020. That's from the previous year, and for each month in 2020, each saw more trail use compared to the same month in the previous year, ranging from 9% to a 94% increase. So we're seeing people get outdoors more. We're seeing people utilize the trails throughout the state. Trails help people of all ages incorporate exercise into their daily routines. Communities that encourage physical activity by making use of linear corridors can see a significant effect and improvement on public health and wellness. Walking or hiking a few times a week can improve a person's health and lower healthcare costs. A National Park Service study compared people who lead sedentary lifestyles to those who exercise regularly, and the exercisers filed 14% fewer healthcare claims. They spent 30% fewer days in the hospital. And they had 41% fewer claims greater than $5,000. So we really feel from a health standpoint that this would be a great addition to not just the Derby community, but to Perry County. The economic benefits of trails. Trails allow communities to increase commerce. They support and create jobs, and they increase property values. So we're proposing to construct a walking trail through the 3 properties that are currently managed by the Derby Community Association.
I started saying, do you have maps of this?
I do. Unfortunately, the brown area is the river because that's what it looks like. That picture was taken this afternoon.
Can't do anything about that.
No.
So what you see there is a drone shot of the Derby Community Association properties. And we propose to construct a walking trail through those 3 properties that you see. And you can see it outlined along the perimeter as well as some meandering through the park and through the other properties. This route would be, actually it would measure 6 feet in width, and it covers just a hair over a half a mile. The route would be excavated to a depth of 12 inches. The route would then be leveled throughout. Stone would then be applied to a depth of 8 inches. Asphalt would then be applied to a depth of 2.5 inches, and the edges would be compacted and contoured. Based on estimates from the contractor who has built several of these throughout the state, the cost for a trail of this type is going to be approximately $70 per linear foot. There's a copy of everything that I've just presented to you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
so we are asking the committee consider a grant of $175,000 to construct this walking trail throughout the community association property. And I welcome any questions.
Is there any matches out there, grants that you guys have looked at where we could feed and match?
I did talk to the U.S. Department of Agriculture last year, met with them in Derby. There
are grants available. At the time that I talked to them, the federal budget had not been approved yet. We feel that there could be as much as $30,000 available to us from the USDA. That's not been applied for because the budget's just recently been approved.
But you will apply for some grants also, correct?
That's part of our, yes, that's part of our.
So as you cross the parking lot here,
Yes,
you're not excavating that and putting.
we're not excavating. There's, in certain spots, there are current
Existing
paved areas. We would stripe those areas. This is in speaking to the contractor, or a contractor, they indicated to me that this is a relatively straightforward application. It's, the parts that are unpaved currently, is just soil, it's just dirt. They don't have to excavate any rock, they don't have to clear any timber or anything like that. So it's a pretty straightforward construction project.
Barry, how often does the river come up and over that area? And who cleans that? I mean,
We do.
That's what I thought.
We clean it. The areas that you're talking about, as you can see, if you look at the boat ramp or boat dock, where's it at right there? You can see there's some mud on there right now, right? And you can also see that there's a little bit of driftwood up there. The river will get up there. It will get up there probably. Typically, it'll get up there a couple of times a year. Every 8 to 10 years, it really gets up high.
Yes.
But, to get up into the parking areas and up in here, it's going to, that's usually an 8 to 10 year event.
So you have the equipment to clean those off, or you just?
No, the one great, the thing about the community is that we just have just an excellent populace of people that just jump in and they get it done. And we'll get.
Your community shows too.
Thank you very much. I
It
appreciate
shows
that.
for the people that live there, your volunteers.
Well, there's a number of folks, and then these gentlemen here included, and we just get together. We meet as an association. We meet monthly, and we, again, our objective, our core values are that we want to improve the area every year. We're constantly looking at new projects to better the area, and we have a group of individuals that just come together. We clean the riverbank. We get rid of the driftwood every year. We keep the area mowed and trimmed and sprayed for weeds and and the regular maintenance that comes with properties like
That's a nice area to have, a walking trail. I mean, when you're walking, you want something to look at, so.
Well, and, I just noticed today, I was doing a lot of running around out there today, and people are walking the highway right now. People are looking for places to walk. And
Well, you get your campers too, or even the people that want to stay in the cabins, they want to see the river. I mean, that would be really nice for that.
Well, we certainly think so. We think it would be a great addition to the community, and we think it would be a great benefit to the county as well, because we get a lot of people from the city, from Tell City out there, but I'm telling you, we get people from all over the country. All of the hunters come in from as far away as Louisiana or Pennsylvania or Florida. They like our deer hunting up here. We get fishermen in from everywhere. We got a Cabela's fishing tournament coming up like a couple weeks. That's going to take place out of Derby Ramp. So there's more and more activity that's happening there this year.
So I assume you haven't had any slippage along the riverbank?
No. That bank, as you can see, is primarily riprap all the way across here. And we stay on top of that.
If we didn't fund this 100%, how would it impact it? Would it just kill the deal?
We wouldn't let it die. No, it won't kill it. We do numerous fundraisers a year to help keep things rolling there. It would certainly help. A grant to help us fund a large portion of this would make it feasible for us to do possibly yet this year. But we would certainly appreciate partial funding. We would really appreciate as much as we could get to that amount.
I appreciate all the information that you provided.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
And thank you for keeping that part of the county beautiful.
Well, we appreciate you noticing that. If you all haven't been out there, we welcome you out there. I'm proud of the place, and we really love it out there. It's a really, really nice part of the county.
Is your contact information on here in case we have any questions or?
No, it's not, but I certainly get it to
Yeah,
you.
if you just want to write it on here somewhere, in your email or something.
I will do that.
So I'm sure I'll have something once I review everything.
Appreciate that.
Yep. And I'll share it with the group in case they have questions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Keep it for yourself.
No, I'll share it. I just didn't know if he felt comfortable saying it. You know?
Oh, no, I want you guys to know how to get a hold of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one.
That is nice.
It's really beautiful area.
It's like you come to Derby Market.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you
Thank you.
considering that.
I'll get that to everybody. I'll just send it to the group. Thank you.
Please keep, I do have one larger piece of the map, if that would help. We need to keep one for our records.
This is good for me, but
The small one,
Number
that
17's fine.
What's that?
this is fine.
Ones we have are fine.
Well, thank you guys very much. I was
Thank
kind of thinking I might get more questions. I guess I
Pretty
did a good
thorough.
job.
Thank you guys for all your hard work.
I'm sure I'll have
Yes,
someone
thank
have a
you
chance
all.
to review everything. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The last one we're waiting for is Perry County Council of Agency.
Perry County Council on Aging.
That's not it?
See, I don't even have
It's
that
right
on
here.
mine.
On aging. This one.
I got it out. Probably miss.
It's still a 2, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and present our proposal to you. My name is Joan Hess, and I serve as the Secretary and Treasurer of the Board of Directors for the Perry County Council on Aging. And with me tonight is Jesse Watkins, our Executive Director, and Missy Noble, who serves as our Board President. 50 years, that's how long the Council on Aging has been formed in Perry County. And we've come a long way in those 50 years. But one of the things that we have realized is we need to do more to increase the socialization among our senior citizens, which I'm happy to say I am one. And I think a few others that are. I think you're exempt for a while.
I'll be 40 this year.
You're old.
You're
She
still
called you old,
good for
Tony.
a long time.
She called you old. Me too.
No, not old, you're mature.
Mature.
Experience, well done. Anyway, we have a lot of activities taking place at our senior center. Last year, we moved into the William Tell Center in Tell City on Main Street, and that has allowed us to really expand our offerings and services to our senior citizen population. We've gone from, in 2016, having like 2 activities a month to currently we have 18 to 20 activities each month. Our outings range anywhere from 25 to 40 participants that require transportation. And there's a lot of reasons that people require transportation. It could be they just don't own a vehicle, they don't know how to drive, there's eyesight or other physical issues of keeping them from being able to drive, or they're timid about driving in town. I know some people in Tell City, yeah, well, at times it can get kind of busy in Tell City. And so there's a lot of different reasons that might keep them from having the transportation. They might not have money to put gas in their vehicle. So there's a lot of things in play there. So we are trying to buy an activity bus, I don't know, for lack of a better word, and we're calling it a Support Life Enrichment Van project.
It's a van.
Sounds really good.
It's a van.
But it's a bigger van. It's one of the big vans.
Big passenger van.
Yes. And by purchasing that just for senior activities, we don't have to worry about utilizing our other fleet vehicles that are really meant for medical runs or are already committed to different projects. We can use this to transport people to the senior center, or we can take outings and transport people to different places, such as once a month, we do an out to lunch bunch where we take them usually, not always, but mostly out of the county to places they would never have the opportunity to go on their own. And so it really is a good thing for them, because the National Institute on Aging recently put out an article, and it talked about the health effects of social isolation and loneliness. And that research has linked social isolation and loneliness to higher risk for a variety of physical and mental conditions: high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and even death. And they also went on to say, and this you might be interested in, Randy, is from Dr. Cole. Loneliness acts as a fertilizer for other diseases. The biology of loneliness can accelerate the buildup of plaque in arteries, help cancer cells grow and spread, and promote inflammation in the brain, leading to Alzheimer's disease. Loneliness promotes several different types of wear and tear on the body. So we're trying to fight against those effects and trying to keep our senior citizens active, socialized, and happy, improving their quality of life, both mentally and physically. So tonight we are coming to you with a request for $25,000 to finish our funding to purchase this van. We have done fundraising on our own, and in our letter, we pointed out to you that we had $24,000 raised. But we can report to you that as of today, we had a surprise visit from United Way, and they gave us a $5,000 grant to be used for this. So we now have $29,000. We're currently looking at purchasing a gently used van, but if we're able to raise a few more funds, we could buy a new van. We had originally wanted to complete this project by the end of March, but we haven't been able to come up with the funds. So the funders that we have secured so far have graciously said they would give us until the end of the year to complete this project. So we are hoping that maybe you can see fit to share some ARP funds with us to increase the physical and socialization of our senior citizens in our county.
Joan, your other vans that you have, what do you have, two vans, two small ones, or?
Oh, God, we have
Seven.
7 vans, yeah.
And what
They're
will,
different sizes.
will you still keep those, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They are busy every day.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I know you said you had more, I didn't know you had 7.
Yes.
If I may, be it understood that those 7 are for NEMT transportation.
Mhm.
They're all set up, with the exception of one, for wheelchairs. They're not really set up for just everyday passenger transport. So it's wheelchairs, it's people with limited mobility, those sorts of things. And those are mostly state-funded vehicles where they paid at least 80% through NDOT, and we paid the 20% local match. And so this vehicle that we'd like to purchase is specifically for the activities program, to support that program. And of course, we would use it for other projects in the county, like every year we help with Kiwanis, moving Kiwanis boxes and things of that nature.
Christmas.
So we wouldn't have to take medical vehicles out of circulation to do those sorts of things.
So the place that provides you the grants for up to 80%, they're not willing to do it because it's not a medical
It's not-
transport.
yeah, because that was through the state medical, yeah.
Emergency medical transport. Yeah.
So are you a 501c3?
Yes, we are.
So, okay, your own entity then.
Yes.
You all do some great work down there. I've been to some of the bingos and some of the games I don't know how to play, and I don't want to embarrass myself when I come down there.
This for 29,000.
And I don't dance. You don't even want to see that.
We have exercise every Friday, ARI, and everybody comes in and once a month and does a different topic that they educate people on.
What's you said it's a used van, so like what's the
Right.
life expected, I mean, does it have a lot of miles or,
Oh, no.
okay, so it would last, like, what's your estimate? Do you
Your
have a- do you have a-
lifetime
Yeah,
of it, you think maybe?
I'd say typically with our NEMT vehicles, it's 7 years or 100,000 miles. So I would say every bit of 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Should be able to-
How many miles is on it, you said?
Well-
It still should be under warranty, but it's a 2023, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That particular one may not still be there.
Well, they move so quick.
Yeah.
But I think the one that they bid us, I want to say it was like 31 miles or.
oh,
I mean, yeah, it was like a dealer.
okay, I was thinking like
Yeah, it's
used,
still,
like a
it's still
legit
way
used
under
30,000.
warranty, yeah.
To me, anything less than $50,000, but 50,000 miles is gently used.
Yeah.
Yeah. At my house, it's 100.
We may have the ability to buy it through our government contract. I don't know whether we can buy police cars and things like that.
Get it a lot
And you get
cheaper.
significant
State of
discount.
Indiana, so that's why I asked what you were, because we can reach out to them to see, because you probably don't care too much the brand. If we could, a lot of times it's Chrysler, might be a Ford, depending on what the state's purchasing. And whether this would be something that they have a price on, so there may be an
It'll be a
option
big
there.
difference in the
Sometimes
The only
it's
thing is
ridiculous.
the county's a
Lot.
government unit, you're not, but I don't know whether that would create an issue or not, but it's something worth looking at.
A lot of times in other purchases, we get county government rates, or at least they tell us we do anyway.
Right.
They're like, do you get money from your county? Yeah, okay. your county. So, that'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
We're not picky on that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if it's an option, it saves a few dollars.
And anything you could help us with.
It's everybody working together. We like it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Is
you.
your contact information, or Jesse yours is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got this number and everything.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just missing.
I got his number. I called him and I texted him and told him that they were having this. I
We're
thought
at
they
8
were
o'clock and we're calling it a night, and we're gonna be back on April the 1st with a few others. And continue the process. But that one, we're starting at 5.
April 1st, yeah.
So, thanks for attending, and thanks for those who brought their ideas forward.
And we'll probably have some questions, so. Thank you. Safe travels home, everyone.